What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. So let's get into it. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But yeah, let's get into it. So the Cowboys, of course, last episode, let you guys know they hired Christian Parker. He's actually been doing some work to fill out the remainder of his staff. The Cowboys are finalizing a deal with Ryan Smith from the Arizona Cardinals. He's going to be their new defensive backs coach. I guess, he's got some ties on the staff with Clayton Adams being the offensive coordinator and also, used to coach in Arizona. So he probably had some good intel for the Cowboys as to what kind of coach they were hiring. And also, one of the good things, him being the defensive backs coach, is that he did coordinate a secondary that allowed the fewest touchdowns in the NFL last season. So I'm not saying that's going to translate one for one to the Cowboys, but if you just think about Christian Parker's expertise being the secondary and the type of things that he's done, and then you have this guy here who's done some good things in the secondary as well, and then has also some recent college experience, whether that's with, Indiana's coach over there when they were at, the previous two stops together. That's always awesome. He also did Virginia Tech when Mansour Delane, who we'll talk about a little bit later, he played at Virginia Tech before he transferred over to LSU, and his coach over there at Virginia Tech was Ryan Smith. So he's got some experience with some of the guys that are coming out in this class, but he also has some experience coordinating calling plays as a defensive coordinator, as well as doing some good work specializing in the secondary. And I think having like both of those guys attacking that's going to be pretty good. But I also like what the Cowboys are doing with some of their interviews as well. Like they've got Zach Orr in here having a second interview. That was as of yesterday. He was out having dinner with the guys and kind of just trying to talk a little bit more. I think that would be a great hire. I did talk about Zach Orr, when this whole process started, in terms of when the Cowboys interviewed him the first time. I more so thought it was him kind of taking a look at maybe being a position coach. It was good that they were interviewing for the defensive coordinator position, but excuse me, I think Zach Orr would do very well with the Cowboys, coaching specialty like linebackers. And also what that would help is Zach Orr has been a coordinator in the NFL for a couple of years, and he got dismissed from his Ravens job at the end of the season, along with the rest of their staff. But he's called plays in the NFL before. You have a young defensive coordinator in Christian Parker who has never done that. And so, Zach Orr, on top of already playing in the NFL and then being a defensive coordinator and being a linebackers coach, that's like his specialty. He played the position. And then also being a sounding board for Christian Parker. I think that would be like, this is someone that the Cowboys should definitely pursue having on the staff. And then some of the other people, Marcus Dixon, the Vikings D-line coach, we like those Brian Flores complicated schemes and things like that, but we also like, the Vic Fangio tree that Christian Parker is coming through with mixing and matching coverages and, kind of playing a two high shell or sometimes a single high, whatever have you, and then rotating into a two high shell. I think Dixon will marry very well with that, especially if he's able to get the most out of some of the defensive linemen. They're also looking at Eagles assistant linebacker coach Ronell Williams, as well as Packers pass game coordinator Derek Ainsley, and then Colorado defensive coordinator, and that's the University of Colorado, Rob Livingston. So they've kind of cast a wide net, as Shadi said that they would, right? When this whole process started, he said, hey, I'm looking for people who are smart. I'm looking for people who can teach. I'm looking for people who are good communicators. And we're going to look at a lot of different people in order to make sure we find exactly what we're looking for. We don't want to make, he didn't go so far as to say this last part, but basically we don't want to make the same mistake twice, because the first hire was the Joneses, and they did what they wanted to do. He went along with it. Now, with him kind of spearheading this along with the Joneses. I want to make sure I'm giving them credit too. But Shotty's definitely got more of a hand, and you can tell just by the names of the people that are coming up, right? I mean, some of them have ties with him. Shotty, who was with Zach Orr in Jacksonville, so they have some ties there from when he was on the staff there. Clayton Adams does have some ties with Ryan Smith, so there are some ties there. But the ties we're used to seeing are former players for the Cowboys. And you know what? Dixon, defensive line coach, in it for an interview. He was a former Cowboys defensive player. He also played for several other teams in the league. But he's built his reputation through, hard work and kind of, coming up quickly through the ranks and getting, a good reputation for getting the most out of his players. So, I mean, you have a mix here, right? You have some things that the Joneses are cool with. You have some things that Shotty's cool with. But I think the one thing you have in common is that you're looking at fresh ideas, fresh faces, fresh things to the Cowboys, and then young minds that are used to seeing offensive players in these newly designed schemes that are taking advantage of certain things, certain skill sets that the players have. And a lot of times it's using it without even getting into the play, right? We're using pre-snap motion. We're using orbit motion. We're using odd packages. In the NFL, it's, through tradition, it's been a lot of kind of the same old same, right? Your running back, maybe 2 to 3 receivers, a tight end, your lineman. Sometimes you're throwing a fullback in there. But some of these new guys are coming out, they're using 3 or 4 tight ends, and they're throwing out of those formations. They're using multiple backs in the backfield at the same time, but not in the way of tradition, right? Not a fullback and a halfback, using 2 halfbacks. Detroit does it with Montgomery and Gibbs all the time. So these defensive coordinators have had to kind of make a new adjustment as far as maybe putting more personnel types on the field, or maybe scaling back personnel types to deal with some of the different groupings and challenges. So you're going to have, these young, fresh minds, hopefully teaching the right skill set and getting these guys prepared to see these types of things on Sunday and handle it a lot better than they handled it this past season. So one of the things, I want to switch gears a little bit. So one of the things we did last time that I also want to do this time, last time we did it with the linebackers. This time I'm kind of doing it with the edges, but just taking a look at some of the free agents that'll be out there if the Cowboys decided, hey, we're going to go in free agency and we're going to attack edge that way. So there's 3 names there that I think of. One is Dante Fowler. The reason I think of Dante Fowler is Dante Fowler didn't have the worst season. He just wasn't present enough. He made some plays when he was out there, but also there were times in the game where I would look up and I'd be like, oh, Dante's out there? Oh, shit. I didn't even know Dante was on the field right now. So we need more of the Dante Fowler who shows up. Now, throughout his career, unfortunately, and pretty consistently, you can set your watch to it, he's had up year, down year, up year, down year, up year, down year, up year, down year. So this year was a down year. He had like 3 sacks, right? And not only that, I mean, if you look inside the numbers, yeah, he had some really good things that he did. Like he was okay in the run game. His pass rush win rate, his pass rush win rate, say that 5 times fast, was pretty high as well. So just, he did okay in some areas, but it just didn't translate to pressure or sacks, right? He'd win his rep, but then on that same rep, the ball will be out so quickly that he's not able to get a pressure or he's not able to get a sack. So, bringing someone like that back and having him with a pretty different coaching scheme will probably help him out a little bit, and it'll be the year that he's up again, right? So we just gave him that contract last year. He's a free agent this year, and we paid him based off of him having 10.5 sacks the year before. If you switch that up and now you get him a little bit of a bargain, right? He had a down year. You give him about $5-6 million. His contract value is actually, they say he's a $5.6 million defensive end. So if they gave him around that, brought him back for 1 year, right? Just like the deal you just gave him. chances are, with the way his career has been, you can set your watch by it. He's going to have probably a pretty productive year rushing the passer. So I think that would be one, and I think that would be the most likely scenario. And I'm not including Clowney in this and stuff like that because I don't know what the Cowboys are actually going to do there. But for the sake of it, I would say Dante Fowler is a realistic option to come back for the Cowboys because it's inexpensive. They know him. And even though the Cowboys have been moving differently this offseason, I still won't believe it in free agency until I see it. I'm just saying. But I'll give you two bigger swings. So one is Joey Bosa. He looks like they're saying he's going to be about a $12 million player. Now, this will be a little bit more than the Cowboys committed to Dante Fowler this past year. I believe they paid him $9.5 million. So if you're going from $9.5 million and you're paying someone like Bosa $12 million, I mean, he probably could give you a pretty decent edge rusher and an okay run player as well. The problem with Bosa is usually health, right? Like most years, if he's fully healthy, he's productive. And then, there's some years though where if he's not healthy, then it sucks because you might have him for 8 or 9 games. He'll be good for those 8 or 9 games, but you're also going to miss him for 8 or 9 games. So you paid $12 million to a player that you might have half the season. Now, this is the type of move the Cowboys would make in the past. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times with the Joneses being heavily involved, the Cowboys usually seem to be a step slow when it comes to recognizing times to make decisions and recognizing who to give money to. They'll give money to Brandon Carr, and then they're okay with the contract, but not really. By the end, his weaknesses were exposed, but that's usually what happens by the end of most contracts. Or they'll go out and thankfully it didn't work, but they tried to give Sammy Watkins $50 million. That didn't work. Thank goodness that didn't work. That would have been a mistake. Somebody else ended up paying him. He went somewhere else. So the Cowboys are usually a step slow in this area. So hopefully with some of the changes that we're, making now, and Shoddy kind of spearheading things more, maybe they don't make a signing like Joey Bosa, but I feel like that's a very Cowboys signing. And then the other one is Travion Henderson. That's the one I don't like at all. I actually think this is, if I'm the Cowboys, I'd stay away from that dude at all costs. Travion Henderson, another one. He's a really good pass rusher. Usually is okay in the run game. And he's another injury risk. He's going to be like Bosa. He's going to miss a fair number of games for you. So I feel like this edge class is kind of odd because, and by the way, like I gave the other two, Travion Henderson will be $24 million. So that's a little bit more than I would like to spend. But overall, I think this edge class, as far as free agency is concerned, I don't like it. I don't think this is where the Cowboys should use free agency to address certain problems. I do think they should this year use free agency. I think we had a little bit better options when it came to the linebackers than we do to the edges. Because, I looked at Mafe. He's not really a big pass rush guy, which is what we're looking for. I looked at Azeez Ojulari. He's not really a big pass rushing guy, and he's coming off an injury. You got Phillips from the Eagles, but that's going to be a lot of money, and that's probably not going to be where the Cowboys want to spend. So it's going to be interesting to see. And you know what? Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully they do everything, and all of a sudden I'm looking up and I'm like, they signed, 4 really good free agents that could help you out. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think they would rather go for like 7 or 8 lower free agents that are very price friendly, and then maybe a medium free agent that they swing on. Hopefully we get to it when we're breaking these down. But last but not least, just wanted to talk to you guys about some of the college guys I watched. So I watched 3 again this time. I watched Mansour Delane from LSU. I watched David Bailey from Texas Tech, and I watched Akeem Mesidor from Miami. So Mansour Delane, I like the guy. If the Cowboys picked him, At 12, honestly, I'd probably be okay with it because um, I think the dude's like he's probably going to be the second best or best corner in this draft. I haven't watched McCoy yet, but everybody's talking about McCoy. So until I see him, but just going off reputation, okay, McCoy is the top guy, but Delane, man, he's pretty good here. He's definitely a sticky cover corner. Like when you're watching him, he's watching the route develop, and he's step for step with the receiver. Like he trusts what he's seeing. He knows what's happening on the field. I don't know if it's tape study. I don't know if just playing that position for a long time and seeing a lot of route trees. I don't know if he's getting tells by the way a person's dipping their hips or by the way a person's moving their shoulders as to what they're going to do. But he seems to always be in position. He does also seem to be good at getting his hands and disrupting guys off the line of scrimmage. I think he'll be good in zone. I think he'll be good in man. I actually think no matter um, what scheme you throw him in, I think he'll be successful. There were times where he had assignments to show like he was, going with a receiver and then having to drop off in coverage and making plays on the ball or knocking the ball down or making the tackle on the catch. He's a pretty decent tackler too. Like he seems okay. He tackles like a corner. I'm not gonna tell you he tackles like a linebacker. He tackles like a corner, but he's at least a willing tackler. So as far as some of the problems we had in the past, with someone like Trayvon Diggs not being willing to set the edge, and so teams running on that way and exposing it and causing basically the whole defense to be out of whack because you have this one weak point that teams can just go after. He's not going to be that type of guy. He'll step up, he'll tackle. I actually do think he has some versatility. He could play in the slot. He is so good at mirroring routes. I'm so curious to see what he runs because he moves well. Um, almost like he's gliding. Like he doesn't necessarily look fast on tape, but he's also like always there. So I'm just gonna be curious to see what he runs because I know that's gonna be the big thing for everyone when it comes to corners, especially. So next, Texas Tech, David Bailey. David Bailey, man, he's good. He's big. Does good at setting up moves. Like he has a lot of tools in his tool belt. At first, when I was watching him, I'm like, this dude's good, but if we're talking about having some bend to get around the edge and stuff like that, I don't know if he. And like as soon as I was like, I don't know if he, it comes up and shows the bend. You know what I'm saying? And then a couple of players later, he's showing the bend again, and then he's setting up other pass rush moves, and he's putting different combinations together, and it's like, oh, okay, now I see it. He's not a blazing fast guy, but he doesn't have any trouble closing the deal. Like if he gets pressure, he's going to affect the quarterback either physically by getting him to the ground or physically as in it's a ill-timed pass or it's a short pass or it's off target or I just threw it away because the play's dead. He's got it. He's beat us. I've watched a few edges so far. We'll get to the last one here. Akeem Mesidor in a second. But so far, I would probably put this guy behind Reese and behind Bain, but right there when it comes to Bailey from Texas Tech. So the last guy, Akeem Mesidor, I like him too. He reminds me a lot of Bain as far as their build. He looks a little taller on tape. I didn't check the measurement height weight yet, but he looks a little bit bigger and taller on tape than Bain, but he just looks that same very square built type of football player, which he has the body type that looks like he can hold up well in the run game, but still has enough length to use it in the pass rush game. The only problem I like the way Mesidor plays too. I think he's physical. I think he's got decent athleticism. I think he does a good job as well, like Bailey, of setting up moves and having different counters off of those moves and being able to, bend his shoulder to the ground and get around the edge. I think the issue with Mesidor is closing. Like he lacks that extra gear, you know, and not to bring up, you know, the old person who was here, number 11, Micah Parsons, but I'm just saying, you know, and it's not just Micah. Watch Myles Garrett, watch Aiden Hutchinson, watch Max Crosby. You know, watch any of these guys when they dip and they get around the corner and they have a chance to close on that quarterback. There's an extra gear that all those guys have to close that distance between them and the quarterback and affect the play physically, right? That doesn't always mean a sack. It could mean a pressure. It could mean a sack fumble because you hit the ball out. It could mean an interception because the quarterback felt your pressure and just had to throw it. So you're just affecting the play physically. But Mesidor does affect plays physically, but I feel like at the NFL level, it's going to be like just too little too late, at least early. I don't know if he can get closing speed. I don't know how you train for that. Like, you know, that's usually something that's you're born with, you know, like that extra burst, that extra gear. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the fastest, but just in a short distance, you can cover some ground, you know, that 3-cone shuttle thing that they like to do at the combine. But yeah, so out of these players, I think I like Delane the most. I would say I like Bailey second, and I would say I like Mesidor third. It doesn't mean that I don't like any of them, but I probably would just know if the Cowboys end up taking Mesidor in the first round, he's going to be a good player, but he's going to be the almost sack guy. He's going to be, you know, DeMarcus Lawrence while he was with us. Like I almost got a sack. You know, one day he's probably gonna have like two, you know, but like he's gonna end the season with like six, like every year, and everybody's gonna be like, what the hell? And he's gonna, you know, so just know if we get Mesidor, he's gonna be that guy. He's never gonna be the 16 sack guy that's just like, you know, tearing it up, you know, the 20% pressure rate, you know, win rate, you know, none of that stuff is gonna be happening. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at jmillerIYL. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com, knockersonthebottom at gmail.com. Any comments, any questions that you have, I'll take them here. You know, you can leave comments below, email me, whatever. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, J Mill. J Mill if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.